future of Hollywood is being battled out right now in theaters as two live-action remakes from the biggest studios in Hollywood go head-to-head.
And everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
After months of chaos, controversy, and a press tour meltdown of legendary proportions, Disney's Snow White didn't just underperform, it imploded.
You know what's interesting about all this is that the only person waiting in line to see Snow White was Rachel Ziegler.
And now, the ripple effect is hitting hard. The first major casualty, Tangled.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
The right to buy Cosby sweaters?
Disney has officially paused development on its live-action Tangled remake. But let's be real, babe. Paused in Disney speak is basically canceled unless a miracle happens.
Rachel Ziegler then inexplicably continued to post herself in an empty theater for her own movie. Literally the only person there. And do you not understand how humiliating this is?
According to multiple insider reports, the movie was deep in pre-production. Casting was underway, the director was locked. The Greatest Showmans, Michael Gracie, and early scripts were already being reviewed. But the second Snow White bombed and headlines about Rachel Ziegler's feud with Disney started piling up, the studio started pulling plugs, fast. They weren't just worried about money, they were terrified of another backlash spiral. Another fairy tale that turns into a PR disaster before it even hits theaters. And Tangled, being another beloved female-led story with strong Gen Z nostalgia, yeah, it was way too risky.
It's too stressful, and frankly, I do not have the nerve.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
This wasn't about creative differences or scheduling. This was full-on panic mode at the Mouse House. Sources say the decision to halt Tangled happened almost immediately after Snow White's third-week box office numbers came in. Numbers so bad they reportedly led to internal reviews of every single live-action project currently in the pipeline. And it's not just the money, it's the optics. Snow White didn't just flop financially, it alienated Disney's core audience. Fans felt disrespected. The tone was off. The messaging clashed with what people actually wanted from a fairy tale. And after Rachel Ziegler's now infamous interviews and social media sound bites, even the most loyal Disney fans were starting to check out. So with Tangled already in development and set to spotlight another headstrong, opinionated female lead, Disney apparently decided it was safer to cut the braid than risk another blow-up, and the fans, they're furious.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again.
The second the Tangled pause hit news outlets, the internet lit up. Justice for Rapunzel started trending on Twitter. Fans flooded TikTok with side-by-side comparisons of what Tangled could have looked like versus what Snow White became. Edits of Rapunzel swinging through her tower with captions like, "Let her out," were everywhere. One viral post said, "So we lose Tangled because Rachel Ziegler couldn't shut up about the prince?" Another TikTok with 500,000 likes showed a spinning frying pan with the caption, "Me preparing to fight Disney for canceling my comfort movie." The backlash isn't just disappointment, it's rage. Tangled is one of Disney's most loved modern princess films, critically adored, fan favorite, memeable, and emotionally satisfying. People have been begging for a live-action version for years, and now, because Snow White was a mess, Tangled is paying the price.
When people watched it originally in 1937 in the theaters, it was an amazing experience because for most people, it was the first color movie. But second of all, people had so connected emotionally with the character of Snow White that when she eats from the apple and she dies, people were literally weeping in the theater because they liked the character of Snow White so much.
Once again, the name at the center of it all is Rachel Ziegler. Even though she wasn't involved in Tangled in any official capacity, the backlash around her Snow White press tour, her public commentary, and the film's failure has now tainted future projects by association. Insiders say Disney doesn't want to risk casting another Ziegler type, meaning a Gen Z actress with strong opinions and a social media presence that can't be reined in. They're reportedly shifting toward brand-safe casting, actresses with low controversy history, minimal social media baggage, and a reputation for staying on message. Ouch. And while Rachel hasn't publicly commented on Tangled's cancellation, fans are already dragging her across platforms, blaming her for starting the domino effect. The comment sections are brutal, saying things like, Rapunzel deserved better than being Rachel's collateral damage.
Because right now there's more dwarves on this podcast than there are in the new Snow White movie.
After Snow White crumbled under the weight of Rachel Zegler's controversy and the audience's brutal rejection, Disney didn't just pause Tangled, they initiated what one insider called a top-down reboot strategy audit. That's PR talk for, they're freaking out. Sources say multiple live-action titles are now either frozen or being quietly rewritten to avoid repeating the same mistakes. The biggest fear internally? Another PR disaster. Disney doesn't want another actress going viral for the wrong reasons. They don't want the next princess to trash the original movie in an interview or joke about not needing a man while starring in a romance. Because whether you loved or hated Rachel's comments, the fallout was real. Audiences walked away, and studios do not recover easily from that kind of walkout. So what are they doing now? Trying to find neutral, low-risk properties to focus on instead. That means less edgy reboots, fewer fairy tales that involve deep fan nostalgia, and more crowd-pleasing, action-heavy IPs with minimal controversy potential. The translation, goodbye Tangled, hello Tron 3.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on their love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
So we didn't do that this time.
What's really sad here is that the Tangled live-action team was ready to go. The director, signed, early script drafts, done. Fan favorite names like Sabrina Carpenter and Dove Cameron were already floating around casting circles, with online buzz building fast. There was even talk of incorporating more musical elements and leaning into a vibrant Broadway-inspired tone. Then, boom, it was over. One insider told The Wrap, this had nothing to do with the quality of Tangled. The studio just got spooked. Snow White scared everyone, and that fear cost a lot of creatives their shot. Writers, designers, consultants, all told to step back, shelf their work, and wait. And you know what hurts the most? Tangled had none of the problems Snow White had. The original story was well-loved. The characters had charm. The tone was modern without being cynical. But it didn't matter, because now it's guilty by association.
Their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, said she hated Snow White, mocked the fact that there was a prince, and that she falls in love as opposed to leaning into her own power. We could go on.
Tangled might be the first, but girl, it's not the only one on the chopping block. Sources say that after this disaster, Disney is reevaluating every single live-action princess film that hasn't already wrapped production. That includes Tiana, which was supposed to go into casting later this year, Hercules, which was once hyped as a modern pop musical reimagining, and even Frozen, which had early treatment drafts circulating in the back offices. All of them on hold or under review. One executive reportedly said, the last thing we need is another girl boss reboot that ends up blowing up in our face. Yikes. It's clear they're panicking, and instead of doing better storytelling, they're freezing everything until the dust settles. Meanwhile, fans are begging for Atlantis, Treasure Planet, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Darker, more stylized. Classics that haven't been overexposed. But Disney doesn't want risk. They want control. And if Tangled is too risky now, that doesn't leave much room for anything remotely bold or new.
Hold on.
That's the face of a serial killer.
And if you disagree with the sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
Noted.
Thanks.
Okay, babe, so here's the tea. Tangled isn't dead, not fully. It's been paused, not deleted, but if it ever does come back, it won't be the same version. Sources say Disney will likely wait years before revisiting it, and when they do, it'll come with a safer cast, tighter script controls, and none of the edgy, updated storytelling they were originally exploring. In other words, it'll be a sterilized, corporate-safe, audience-tested version of what Tangled could have been, which kinda defeats the point. The original was bold, vibrant, emotional, with just enough sass to feel modern without alienating fans. Now, if they're going to bring it back, they'll bring it back timid, which no one asked for. And the worst part? They didn't cancel it because fans weren't excited. They canceled it because they were too scared to handle it the right way.
I'm a narcissist.
That she is. And by the way, the producer of Snow White, his son, knows it.
It's not just Snow White that took the hit. Babe, Rachel Zegler's influence, or more accurately, the fallout from her entire press tour, is now hanging over every single live-action Disney film in development. She didn't just cause a ripple, she caused a PR tsunami, and the aftershocks are reaching into projects she wasn't even attached to. Like Tangled, Disney insiders are now admitting that Rachel's media storm wasn't just bad optics, it was bad business. One former marketing strategist put it bluntly, "She cost us more goodwill than any flop ever could." Ouch. Her repeated comments undermining the original fairy tale structure, her criticism of the classic characters, and her tone during interviews didn't just tank Snow White, they tainted the perception of Disney's entire reboot direction. Studio execs reportedly now refer to her situation as a case study in internal meetings. Literally, they're using her as the example of what not to allow on a press tour again. And guess what? They're overcorrecting. Future casting for fairy tales is now being filtered through a brand safety lens. The directive is clear: no more Rachel Zeglers. That means Gen Z actresses who are outspoken, hyper online, and potentially unpredictable are being deprioritized. Talent doesn't matter if you can't keep the audience on your side. And with Rachel's face still plastered all over Snow White's failure, Disney isn't just scared, they're shifting everything.
Literally no offense to anything. They're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that fucking backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the f*** are you doing, man?
Let's talk about the real shift here. It's not just a studio problem. This backlash didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened because the audience is over it. For years, Disney banked on the fact that we'd show up no matter what, that nostalgia would blind us. That slapping a live-action filter on an animated classic would be enough. But Snow White broke the illusion. And now, with Tangled being canceled, fans are snapping. People aren't just disappointed, they're furious that beloved characters like Rapunzel are being shelved, not because of lack of interest, but because the studio couldn't manage its own PR mess. Edits are flooding TikTok of animated Rapunzel singing, "When will my life begin?" with captions like, "Apparently not in live action." Comments like, "Disney punished us for their mistake," are everywhere. And babe, they're not wrong. This isn't about one actress or one film. This is about a fan base that feels ignored, talked down to, and blamed for not accepting the product. Disney expected loyalty, the audience expected magic. Now, neither side is getting what they want. And the backlash? Oh, it's loud.
Look at this. Look at this face. What can be said about this level of narcissism here?
Here's where it gets real. The era of the girl boss princess reboot is officially expired. You know the one. No romance, no vulnerability, just armor and monologue. Disney thought Gen Z would eat it up, but instead, they're rolling their eyes and asking for stories with real heart again. Because let's be honest, Tangled already had everything Disney claims to want in its new era heroines. Rapunzel was brave, funny, curious, creative, and emotionally complex. She challenged the narrative without rejecting it. She didn't need to dunk on love to be empowered. She didn't have to rip the story apart to prove her strength. She was strong because of her kindness, not in spite of it. So when Tangled got tossed out with the rest of the reboot mess, Gen Z wasn't having it. They saw through the studio spin. The problem was never the fairy tales. It was the way Disney twisted them to fit a trend that was already dying. That's why Encanto worked. That's why Turning Red hit. That's why Across the Spider-Verse and Barbie shook the industry. Because Gen Z doesn't want shallow updates. They want storytelling with emotion, authenticity, and characters who evolve without shame. That's what Tangled already was, but Disney let it go.
Cheering for herself.
Let's call it what it is. The Disney live-action remake strategy has collapsed. It used to be easy money, a guaranteed hit. But with Snow White turning into a headline horror show, and now Tangled being quietly killed, the pattern is obvious. The formula's dead. Audiences are no longer tolerating empty retellings, safe scripts, or cynical updates dressed up in empowerment lingo. We want more. And Disney isn't delivering it. So where does that leave us? With Tangled shelved, with future princess projects on ice, and with a studio that's finally realizing it can't keep milking nostalgia while ignoring what made these stories magical in the first place. This isn't just about a canceled movie. This is about a generation waking up and saying, if you're going to retell the stories we love, then do it with love. Or don't do it at all.
And to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there. If the story is offensive, change the story, don't change the character.
Let's not play. If there's one thing Disney responds to, it's pressure. And right now, they're trying to quietly sweep Tangled off the slate like nobody would notice. But babe, this isn't Pinocchio. This isn't one of those forgotten properties. This is Tangled, a global favorite, a billion-view meme machine, and a deeply loved story for an entire generation. And pulling it without warning, just because another reboot flopped, that's gonna sting for a while. But here's the good news. Tangled has something Snow White didn't, a fan base that still loves it unconditionally. This isn't about reclaiming a film that disappointed, this is about defending one that never got its shot. And if fans make enough noise, the studio will listen. Just look at history. The Sonic movie got redesigned because people wouldn't shut up. Justice League got recut because fans willed it into existence. And Disney has backtracked before, when the noise was too loud to ignore. If there's a chance to resurrect Tangled, it lies in full-blown online mobilization. I'm talking fan campaigns, trend takeovers, reaction edits, thousands of this. Could have been beautiful TikToks. Because Disney doesn't move for love, they move for reputation, and right now, their rep is fragile. One more hit from a united fandom, it could force them to uncancel what they never should have shelved.
That at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
The ego on this girl is ridiculous. Wow.
But even if Tangled does come back someday, this whole situation reveals something darker about the studio. Disney didn't pull this movie because of a content issue, or casting drama, or creative conflicts. They pulled it out of fear. Fear of another backlash. Fear of another star going off script. Fear of losing control of the narrative. And that fear is what's killing the magic. There was a time when Disney was bold, when it trusted the stories, trusted the emotion, trusted the art. Tangled, the original, was one of those moments. It had joy, music, a heroine who was vulnerable and powerful, a love story that didn't feel forced. Now, they won't even try to recapture that because they're scared someone might say the wrong thing online. What's wild is that Tangled already had everything this new Disney era says it wants: an emotionally intelligent female lead, a message about autonomy, a villain rooted in manipulation instead of monsters. But instead of championing it, they ran. And that's not just weak, that's tragic. Because when a studio starts canceling its most beloved stories out of fear, that's not innovation. That's a brand in survival mode.
And they postponed the release of this thing, Ben, for a year because their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, told all Trump supporters that they could off.
Let's call it. The modernized princess trend is officially over. The cold, edgy, anti-love spin, done. The monologues about not needing a man in a romance story, tired. The idea that reboots have to reject their roots in order to seem progressive, played out. Fans don't want that anymore. And truthfully, we never asked for it in the first place. What we wanted were stories that grew without erasing, stories that honored the past while showing something new. And Tangled was already doing that before it ever got the live-action treatment. But Disney forgot who its audience was. They thought they had to fix fairy tales to make them matter, when in reality, all they had to do was tell them honestly. Now, Gen Z, the very demo they thought would cheer this all on, is the one pulling away the fastest. They're posting "We miss real Disney" clips. They're rejecting cynical storytelling. And they're turning to stories like Barbie, Heartstopper, Across the Spider-Verse, and even Bluey, because they're real, emotional, wholesome without being hollow, progressive without being performative. Disney tried to sell empowerment with no joy, and Gen Z said, "We're good."
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely when it got announced.
He wasn't a stalker, by the way.
Thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
Let's be real. What's happening right now isn't just about Tangled, it's a brand crisis. Disney, the studio that once defined fairy tales, now feels disconnected from them. Every move they make lately feels like reaction, not vision. Every reboot feels like a corporate memo, not a creative spark. And every cancellation, especially this one, feels like an admission that they don't trust themselves anymore. You know what people loved about Tangled? It felt sincere, unforced. It had heart without irony, drama without snark, emotion without apology. And now, it's been buried because someone else, in a completely different movie, made headlines and turned a box office into a battlefield. That's what hurts the most. Disney didn't cancel Tangled because fans didn't care. They canceled it because they couldn't manage their own mess. And when the storytellers start running from their own stories, that's how kingdoms fall.
And so it was like
those people.
Very much this, yes.
Yeah, the people that we need to educate, the people that we need to love into awareness.
Love them in the right direction.
So here's where we pass the torch. Do you think Tangled deserves a live-action revival? Should fans rally to save it? Can Disney earn back trust after canceling something so many people were actually excited for? Or is this just the final straw in a long string of reboots no one really asked for? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The rants, the tears, the edits, the takes. Let Disney see what they threw away. And if you live for these deep dives, drama breakdowns, and fairy tale fiascos, babe, you know what to do. Like this video, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you never miss a meltdown, because they might have cut Rapunzel's braid, but this story is far from over.